Find the derivative of f of t equals the square root of t plus 2 times the square root of t plus 3. Then evaluate f prime of 16. F of t here is the product of two functions, the square root of t plus 2 and the square root of t plus 3. One option is to use the product rule. Another option, if possible, is to take the product, which will make the derivative easier to find. We are able to find the product here by FOILing this out, so that's what we're going to do. First, the square root of t times the square root of t. The t's can multiply each other under a square root, so the square root of t squared. Outside, the square root of t times a 3 is plus 3 square root of t. The inside, a 2 times the square root of t is plus 2 times the square root of t. And then the last, a positive 2 times a positive 3 is a positive 6. Now, the first term is the square root of t squared, which is a t. The outside and inside terms can combine. 3 plus 2 is a 5 square root of t, and then plus 6. One last thing we may want to do, the second term here is going to need to be written as a fractional exponent so that we can use the power rule for it. So we have 5 times a t. It's to the first power, but then it's square root. First power over square root, 1 over 2 for its power. Then plus 6. Now let's find the derivative. F prime of t equals, the first term is a constant times t. The derivative of that will be the constant. It's a 1. The second term is going to be a power rule. Bring the 1/2 down, multiply it with the 5, and then subtract 1 from the power. I will call it 2 over 2 for a common denominator. The third term is a constant with no t. The derivative of that will be a 0. So we will have 1 plus a 5 over 1, you can think of it as 5 over 1 times 1 over 2. Multiplied numerators, 5 times 1 is 5. Over multiplied the denominators, 1 times 2 is 2, so 5 halves. And then t raised to the 1 over 2 minus 2 over 2, which is negative 1 over 2. We can now rewrite this. Since we have a t to the negative 1/2, we can move it into the other position, which is the denominator. It's currently in the numerator, and call it a t to the positive 1/2. It'll be in the denominator with the 2 that's already down there. Now one more step. T to the 1/2 is the square root of t to the first power, so just the square root of t. There's our derivative f prime of t. The next thing is to evaluate f prime of 16, which means to plug a 16 in to everywhere that you have a t. So it'll be 1 plus 5 divided by 2 times the square root of 16. The square root of 16 is a 4, so this will be 1 plus 5 divided by 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is an 8, so we have 1 plus 5 over 8. We need a common denominator, so 1 times 8 over 8. Plus 5 over 8 gives us 8 over 8 plus 5 over 8. 8 plus 5 is 13 over 8.